We continue our study of King Solomon's guidance in the book of Proverbs. And here, in the following verse, King Solomon teaches us how to speak correctly, to what extent we should emphasize the words that come out of a person's mouth. A person who pays attention to their speaking style, that is, doesn't just let words come out of their mouth as they come to mind, but rather becomes accustomed, trained to control what they say. It's been said that a word, before it's spoken, is under control. After it's spoken, it begins to control you with all its consequences and meanings. And here King Solomon says, "To those who speak sharply, like the thrusts of a sword, the tongue of the wise heals. To those who speak offensively, aggressively, insultingly, without softening their words. Then they spout words and feel they are only saying what they think, because they are a truthful person. Some still pride themselves on this. I am a truthful person. I say what is in my heart." You can say what is in your heart, but how do you formulate your words? He says, "Know that words can be like sword thrusts." Speaking aggressively is like sword thrusts, that is, like a stab. The person speaks and feels they are only relieving their pressure, their tension, their anger. But in practice, the person in front of them feels as if they are being stabbed. He doesn't say, "There are those who speak like a stab." With King Solomon, it's like a doctor who knows exactly what to do. What is the precise medicine? What is the exact dosage? A doctor who takes pity on a patient and gives him medicine 10 times stronger than necessary could kill him. That's not what he needs. It's true that it's the medicine, but there's a dosage. The tongue of the wise heals. The speech of a wise person is like medicine. They know exactly what to say. She defines it first. Don't explode at the child because you're angry, saying whatever comes to mind, but rather think before you call the child out. The same in marriage, with anyone, but with children, it's much more about thinking about what the problem is here. What issue do I want to resolve? Why am I talking to him? Why not just let the situation go and walk away? The answer is, because he's behaving inappropriately. I need to educate him, or my wife doesn't know what's bothering me, so I need to talk to her so she knows. My friend keeps behaving this way. If I don't call him out, do you want to call him out? Set a goal. What do you want to achieve? What change do you want to see? Define it for yourself. What is the excess that you want to remove like a diamond? And remove only that, a tombstone in the right way. King Solomon says elsewhere, "Train up a young man according to his way, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it." This verse contains all the foundations of education. In the book on early childhood education, we delve deeper into the explanation of this verse. Which means according to his way, why not according to your way? But what concerns us now is the end of the verse. Even when he grows old, he will not depart from it. I once attended a lecture for school teachers. Once a month, they organize a meeting and bring someone to speak about early childhood education. And there I asked them, in your opinion, as experienced people with years of experience, some veterans who educate the children of Israel, what is the purpose of education? Every person who does something sets a goal. They want to achieve a result. I'm not talking about teaching school content now. That's a separate and also important topic. I'm talking about education, where we want to get to. When you see a child behaving a certain way, you say, "I've achieved this. This child is well behaved." When can you say a child is well behaved? There was silence. Then one of the veteran teachers raised his hand and said that, in his opinion, if we can achieve a situation where a child is obedient, that is, receives an order and follows it, that means they are well behaved. The audience agreed with him, that this is the definition. Why not? I asked him. If that's the goal, I want to ask you a question. What if a child is beaten every day to do what they're told? And you get what you want? Everything you say, they do. Is that a well-behaved child? What's the proof that they aren't? When you're not around, will they behave according to what you taught them? Or will they do the exact opposite? Will they do the opposite? Will they want to kick everything that was imposed on them? What did you gain from that? Just because they do what you want doesn't mean they are well behaved. You can train them like you train an animal, but the moment they're without your yoke, without your reins, they'll kick everything. As Rabbi Volbe, of blessed memory, once said, a child is like a spring. The more you compress them, the further they fly when they can let go. The more you tighten them, the further they go. This is not education. So, a debate developed there. What is the real purpose of education? And I told you at the end this verse that King Solomon said, train up a young man according to his way. This is guidance on how to educate according to each child's nature, the goal, and even when they grow old, they will not deviate from it. Old age symbolizes the moment when the parents are no longer with the child. They are in the world to come, the educators are no longer with them. But this is just a metaphor. Even while the parents are still alive, how does the child behave when they are not around? This is the goal of education, that even when they grow old, when you're no longer around, they won't deviate from what you taught them. You didn't forcefully impose it on them, but rather, you managed to get them to identify with your values, to want to put them into practice, to say, this is right, this is how one should act. So, even if I fall, I'm not perfect, but I'm working on it, correcting myself, changing. The righteous will fall 7 times and get up again until they reach their goal, until they reach perfection. The goal of education is to bring the child to a state where even when their parents or educators are not around, when they're behind the school building where no one sees them, when they're at a friend's house and no one sees them, they still behave as they were raised. It's important to know that this is the goal of education, because then whenever we're going to get a child's attention, we should ask ourselves, what am I about to do now? Shouting at her, scolding her, hitting her. The question is, am I achieving the same thing that will not deviate when I get older, or am I achieving the opposite? Will this action, these words I say, the way I speak, my nerves, not cause the opposite of what I want? So, what am I really doing? Rabbi VBE writes in his book on education that sometimes a father is seen hitting his son, hitting him hard, cruelly. They ask him, what are you doing? He replies, what do you mean? What am I doing? I am the father. I have to educate him. I am educating him. Quote. Rabbi Volbe says, examine yourself in the depths of your soul. Are you really hitting him to educate him? Or are you hitting him because you want revenge on him for not obeying you? They say this to a father, and he says, avenge myself on my son? God forbid. But examine yourself deeply. Where does this come from? Because if the goal were truly to educate, you wouldn't hit him so cruelly, you wouldn't vent all your anger on him. You would think and consider, like someone handling a polished diamond. You know exactly how to measure and how to use the most delicate tools, just to remove that excess. And that's what it says here. There are those who speak like sword thrusts. The Gaon of Vilna writes about this verse that these words to those who speak like sword thrusts don't just mean that with words you can hurt another, your wife, your friend, your children, like a knife. He says that punishment is also described here. This is what the Gaon says. King Solomon is describing the punishment for those who cause undue suffering to another. He is judged in heaven as if he had stabbed them. When a person speaks and hurts another, embarrasses them, or in public, they feel, what have I done too much? I didn't touch him, I just spoke. Quote, each one went to their corner. But whoever shames another in public, says the Talmud, is as if they had shed blood, as if they had killed the person. That is, in heaven, after 120 years or earlier, they are judged for bloodshed. It says, but I killed someone when I did this. The Talmud says, why is one who shames another in public considered a bloodshedder? Says the Talmud, a silson caveat rivra in Aramaic. Red comes and white comes. When someone is shamed, the blood rushes to their face, the person turns red. Then all the blood drains from their face and they turn pale. For the saint, blessed be this movement you caused in their body, in their blood, through offensive words, is considered as if you had shed blood. There are those who have the custom of, upon seeing someone humiliated, running to them to ask for a blessing at that moment. They ask the offended person, "Bless me." Why? Because you, on your spiritual level, heard what was said to you and yet remained silent so as not to cause contention. Your merit is great in heaven. Your prayer now, your requests, carry great weight. But no one should, to give merit to another and have their blessings accepted in heaven, begin to humiliate them in public. Each person should be sensitive to their neighbor. The more sensitive a person is, this is what Solomon concludes here. But the tongue of the wise heals. It also teaches that speech can heal another person's heart and also that the reward, your reward, is great. A person who heals someone's body, someone was sick and you healed them, how much merit is there in that? But a person who heals another's soul, how much merit do they have for that? And here too, by carefully analyzing Solomon's words, we see that he says, the tongue of the wise heals. He could have said the tongue of kind people. If you have a good heart, then you invest in others. What does this have to do with wisdom? Wisdom is burning. What does the language of the wise mean? Healing. But what he's teaching here is, if you want to heal, you need to be wise. Wise means understanding what the other is going through, experiencing their emotional world. Quote, I also saw this in Rabbi VB, of blessed memory, when he was already over 90, and also in Rabbi Steinman, who was approaching 100. I talked with them about education, among other topics. You talk to him about a 3-year-old child and you realize he enters the mind of a 3-year-old. He now becomes a 3-year-old child. Talk to him about a 15 or 16-year-old with all the effervescence and impulses. And you see that person transforming into a 15 or 16-year-old. He lives that moment with all the temptations, all the difficulties, all the challenges. In any situation in the world, great men, you see them enter the mind of the other, they live the other. And based on this, he answers accurately. The words you speak are the most correct, the most precise, because he feels what you are saying. He understands what your question is. That is why, says Solomon, do you want to heal people with your speech? Like a true psychologist, a good psychologist, who knows how to help with the right words, even without having studied psychology. A person who lives with others, feels them, wants them to be well and tries to put themselves in their shoes, understand what they are going through. You are a wise person, whose speech, says King Solomon, the tongue of the wise heals. On another level, they explained this verse by saying that King Solomon is also warning here against negative speech, against slander. So far, we have spoken of those who speak as if they were thrust with a sword. When you speak to someone and wound them, it is as if you had stabbed them. From another point of view, this is how Rabino Yonah explains it. And the Gaon of Vilna also brings this up in this verse. A person who speaks ill of others is, as if you had killed him. The other person doesn't even know you spoke about him. He didn't hear, he's not around, he's not present. But you told others about his faults. According to the Relaxa, unlike the laws of the country, even something true is forbidden to say. Saying something negative about another person, unless it's for a constructive purpose, is prohibited. In the laws of the country, when you can sue someone for defamation, when something false was said, and if they bring proof that they spoke the truth, you'll still be the one to pay the court costs, because you sued for nothing. They prove they spoke the truth. In Jewish law, it's not like that. In the laws of Lachon Hara, negative speech. Even when someone tells the truth about another, the Torah prohibits it, unless it's for a constructive purpose. For a purpose, that is, for example, a friend asks you about a girl he recommended, with the intention of marrying her, and he says to you, you work together, you know what she's like. What do you have to say about her? And you know she's very problematic. She gets irritated by everything and explodes easily. She's unmanageable, she has no control. Quote, she's nice, well-spoken, but when she gets angry, she completely loses control. It's okay to say to him, look, she's a good girl, calm, quiet. quiet. Will you be happy with her forever? Single quote. Why would you say that? Because Lachon Hara says she's nervous. Not only is it permissible to tell the truth, but it's not considered lana. How is it a mitzvah to tell the truth? Also, tell the positive points so he has a complete picture. That she's good at A, B, and C, but that she has a problem with her anger trait, that she gets angry easily. You tell him, then he decides what to do with it, but it needs to be told. The same goes in reverse, when they investigate a guy and there's information that has an impact on his life. You shouldn't tell everything in marriage laws. Not everything you know should be told. Only what's relevant to the couple's quality of life. If it has an impact, for example, on a person who had a health problem, but it has no practical consequences, then there's no need to tell. He was hospitalized for 2 months and then it went away. It has no implications for his life. So, why fill people's heads with imagination? Let them think, who knows what happened there? Things that have no consequences for life. They shouldn't be shared, but things the person needs to know about who they're going to live with can't be hidden. Especially if the question is direct, like the person's anger. Then it's even permissible to change the facts, even lie, if it's to protect the other person. It takes a lot of wisdom and discernment. When in doubt, one must ask, according to Jewish law, what is permitted and what is forbidden. On the other hand, it's also important to know if someone heard negative information, and this was for constructive purposes. For example, they want to establish a business partnership with someone and ask someone they know, and they say, don't get involved with him. He's a cheater, he's deceived several people, taken money, he'll harm you. Quote. They're right to have said this, and there's no problem with Lachon Hara, because it's to prevent harm. But you, who heard it, cannot accept it as the absolute truth. What does can't accept mean? You may decide not to do business with that person because you're afraid of what you heard. This is what the sages call suspicion. You're suspicious, but saying to yourself, from now on, he's a cheater in my eyes, and seeing him on the street with contempt, thinking ill of him, is forbidden. You might say, I don't want to get involved with him because I fear what I heard, but don't take it as a truth revealed from heaven. You're suspicious because you heard something, but you can't accept it as established truth. A society that observes the laws of Lachon Hara, according to Jewish law, is a society that lives with quality of life. Everyone knows that even if they make a mistake, it won't become public knowledge. Not everyone will tell everyone. Everyone has flaws. Is there anyone who can say they're perfect, that everything they do is right? It is written in the verse, for there is not a righteous man on earth who does good and does not sin. There is no perfect person. There are levels of failures even among the great ones of Israel, subtleties like wasting time studying Torah or other such issues. And there are also women who stumble in certain things, but there is no one who is perfect. And when one is aware of this, the Torah tells us, when you see a flaw in another person, don't go running to tell so-and-so. What is the benefit of this? What are you telling them for? Just to diminish their worth, to cause conflict between people? These are things that create tension. King David says in Psalms, chapter 120, I called to the Eternal in my distress, and he answered me. He called to the Holy One, blessed be he, out of affliction. What is this affliction? He says, Eternal, save my soul from lying lips, from a deceitful tongue. Quote. And then he addresses that person, not physically, but with words. What will he give you? What will he add to you, O deceitful tongue? Negative speech, especially when it is a lie, what is gained by it? And he continues. Sharp arrows of a mighty man with coals of juniper. It is the same idea that Solomon, his son, expresses, that speech is like arrows, sharp arrows. Here he speaks of sword thrusts. There David speaks of arrows. What does this mean? A person is at a distance, not close, but shoots an arrow, and the arrow can travel a long distance and hit someone. So too are your words. You are speaking to someone in secret, but the consequences of what you said have destroyed that person's life. People turn away from them, despise them, humiliate them. You have caused estrangement in the hearts of people who were friends. How often does this happen? They were dear friends. Suddenly, someone comes and says, so and so said that about you. It may be true, it may not be, but even if it is, why do you need to tell this? What's the point? It creates tension between them. Maybe it was just a moment of irritation when he said something. But why rush to tell? What is the meaning of the word rihalo? Gossip. Rihalo and Lachon era. What is rihalo? These days, that profession no longer exists. In the old days, there were the rahilan. What did they do? They went from place to place with a box around their neck, knocking on doors and selling needles, thread, and utensils to the residents. They took from one side and sold on the other. That's how the gossiper is. He hears something here, sees something there, and goes and tells it again. He finds pleasure in it. Where does this desire, this attraction that people have, come from? To talk about others without any benefit. Where does this originate in the human soul? Why does this urge to gossip exist? It comes from a person's desire to aggrandize themselves and feel superior to others. What's the connection? He wants to be the most important, the most respected, the perfect one. But he has no way to prove he's perfect. So what does he do? He starts to belittle everyone around him. This one is like this. That one is like that. If he puts everyone down, whoever is left at the top, only he remains elevated above everyone else. Gossip and negative talk come from a bad place, from corrupted character traits. Traits that destroy a person's life and the lives around them. That's why King Solomon warns, beware of this. And in contrast, the tongue of the wise heals. A wise person examines the situation and applies their reasoning. What can I say to another to heal their wounds? This week I had the honor of participating in the Rabbinical Center of Europe Congress. Once a year, all the rabbis of Europe gather in a different location, and they asked us to share a few words. This year, the meeting was in Krakow, Poland, and after the Congress, before returning to Israel, they took all the rabbis, including Rishon LeZion, Rabbi Itakosef, and the chief rabbi, Rabbi Sieberber, on a guided tour of the Auschwitz extermination camp, with all those terrible atrocities. There, they held a remembrance ceremony, lit candles in memory, and all the rabbis prayed together. The guide accompanied the group. When we arrived at the place where Mengele, that cruel pervert, decided life or death with a simple gesture of his finger, he told some stories based on the testimonies of people who lived through the Holocaust. One of these stories expresses exactly what the words, the tongue of the wise heals, mean. One of the survivors who managed to escape and emigrate to Israel spent many years tormented, expressing pain before family and friends. He said he could not forgive himself. His words were, I killed my father in the Holocaust, and I cannot forgive myself for that. What does that mean? Killing one's own father? He said that they were both very weak, sick, and hungry. He was a young man. His father wasn't that old, but he was older than him. There was a piece of bread, and they were both about to die of hunger. The father said, you eat it. And he replied, I won't eat it. You eat it. For a long time, they argued about who should eat that piece of bread. The son insisted that the father eat it. The father wanted the son to eat it. In the end, he says, it was he who ate it. And the next morning, his father didn't wake up. Throughout his life, he carried a terrible feeling of guilt. It said, I killed my father. I shouldn't have eaten that piece. I should have left it for him. No matter how much they tried to explain it, you were younger. Your father understood that there was a better chance of you surviving. He wouldn't accept it. He continued to carry that burden. When he reached one of the wise men, he told him with an open heart that he couldn't forgive himself for killing his father. The rabbi didn't throw him cliches, but began to ask questions, to understand the details. What was his condition? What was his father's? After hearing everything and having a complete picture of the situation, he said to him, look, according to what you told me, even if they had both eaten that small piece of bread, neither of them would have survived. There were no conditions, there was no chance of survival. It was because of your merit for having fulfilled the commandment to honor the Father, obeying his command, that it was fulfilled in you, so that your days would be prolonged. Quote. He says this healed his wound. From that moment on, his life changed. He regained inner peace. I am not guilty. And this, he said, is truly the healing tongue of the wise. You need to know what to say. Words of comfort that make sense. Don't just throw out empty phrases that go unnoticed. Speak words that are coherent. Reflect. Delve deeper into the subject. Heal the wound of the person who is suffering. Even today, there are often young people who made mistakes in certain situations, or older people who made mistakes when they were young, and that scar burns them inside. I ate something unsafe or tripped over things during a trip abroad. This corrodes them inside, and they can't forgive themselves. They feel there's no way to make amends for something so serious and say to themselves, "You messed up." It doesn't sink in. But I've seen from experience that often when you tell the person suffering that they can't accept that their mess erased everything, whoever said what you did was wrong. You say you ate something unsafe, that you tripped over something outside of Israel. Who said it was bad? Who said it was forbidden? What do you mean? Is it clear in the Torah that it is forbidden? Yes, but in the same Torah that says it is forbidden, it is written that whoever has made a mistake and made a sincere confession about the past, such as, "If I could go back, I would not have made that mistake at all," with a firm decision for the future. From this day forward, I completely assume that I will never do that again. An absolute decision. Change the world however you want, I will not do that anymore. These are the first two elements: thought, regret for the past, commitment, decision for the future. The third element is confession. It is written in the Torah, "And they shall confess their sin." You speak to God, you don't need a rabbi for that. You are children of the Eternal, your God. Speak directly to the Father. I erred, I failed, I did this and that. I deeply repent, just between you and the Creator. And then a new page begins, and your sin will be forgiven, your transgression erased. There are more serious sins that require the Day of Atonement for atonement, but this is the foundation of Teshuvah. So you cannot say to the saint, "Blessed be he, I believe it is forbidden, but I don't believe it can be fixed." The one who told you it is forbidden is the same one who told you it can be fixed and explained how to fix it. And so you begin a new page. You are clean and pure. What happened is as if it were a previous incarnation. It is no longer you. It is as if someone else did it. It is a new page. So, move forward with a clean soul, with a clear conscience. Believe in the saint, blessed be he, that you truly are clean. When presented with logical, rational proof, that is when accepted by your mind, this actually heals the wound, the inner pain that accompanies it. And this is what King Solomon emphasizes to us here. Some speak like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise heals. Finally, what happens when a person says, "Look, I've gotten used to speaking aggressively. I live this intention with everyone around me, with my wife, with my children." Quote. Or a woman feels this way about her husband or the environment around her. There are situations where a person conforms to the bad condition they find themselves in because they feel, "This is who I am, and I can't change." And this is a big mistake. It's written, "And you will master it." In other words, you can master instinct. The Holy One, blessed be he, says, sin is already at the door, and its desire will be for you, but you will master it. What is the problem then? Habit. When a person is accustomed to a behavior, he says, "Yes, it is wrong, but I will continue as I have always done." And this does not only apply to the issue of anger management or aggressive speech. Also, a person who is accustomed to not keeping Shabbat but wants to start observing it, thinks, "I've gotten used to it, I'll continue like this." Quote. Or someone who wants to start putting on tefillin, but says, "It's not my habit," and continues on the old paths. It's important to always remember this as a metaphor. Imagine a person who needs to get to Rafah. They know they need to take Route 6 to do so. They get on Route 6, drive, drive for almost 2 hours, and don't see Haifa on the horizon. They're listening to music distractedly, not paying attention to the signs. Suddenly, they see they're in Mitzpayman. They've taken the highway south instead of north. What do they do at that moment? They say, since I've driven this far, I'll continue to a lot number. She recalculates the route. She made a mistake, she turns around. She lost 2 hours, it will take longer, but there's nothing she can do. She needs to get home. And where does she live? There. No, here, too. The person who feels her life is on the wrong path and thinks, but so many years have passed like this, recalculates the route, turns around, and reaches her destination. A person can change. There's a famous story about Rabbi Israel of Salante. It's said that once in the middle of the night, it's a familiar story, but it's worth repeating and recording, he left the Beit Midrash in the yeshiva of the city of Salant, before the Holocaust, before the destruction, and was heading toward his home. He saw a small, flickering light in a shoemaker's window. There was no electricity back then. A flickering light meant a candle. The whole city was made of wood. A fire would be an indescribable tragedy. He realized the shoemaker had forgotten to extinguish the candle and left. If the candle touched the wood, it would set the table on fire. He ran. What to do? As he approached, he saw that the door was ajar. He peeked inside and saw a small candle burning and the shoemaker sitting there diligently repairing shoes. The rabbi was startled and asked, "At this hour, 2 a.m., you're still working?" The shoemaker, apologizing, replied, "Rabbi, as long as the candle is lit, it can still be repaired." He was taking his time. They say the rabbi engraved this phrase deeply. It was his custom to learn moral lessons. Even from the simplest people, from the simplest sentences, he always reflected, what can I learn from this? The next day, he entered the Beit Midrash, 200 students studying, knocked on the table, and said, "I want to teach you a great moral lesson I received yesterday from the shoemaker." The shoemaker said, "As long as the candle is lit, it can still be repaired. It is written, the candle of God is the soul of man. The soul is compared to a candle. While the candle is lit, while we are alive in this world and have not yet passed to the next world, it is still possible to make amends, to correct character traits, to atone for sins committed, to change, to achieve peace in the home when a person dies." It is written, also said by Solomon in the book of Ecclesiastes, "Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might, for there is no action, nor calculation, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in Sheol where you are going." Sheol is the grave. Quote. He says, while you are alive in this world, you can act and do it. Do it, for there is no action, nor calculation, nor knowledge, nor wisdom there. Quote. What is the difference between these words? Action. In this world, there are practical precepts. Putting on tefillin, making a kid, holding lulavo, counting Homer. In the next world, there is no more action. You can no longer perform mitzvot because you no longer have a body. You only receive reward for the mitzvah you performed in life. Calculation refers to prohibitions, such as avoiding eating something forbidden. Knowledge and wisdom refer to the study of Torah. Here in this world, you can build yourself and then continue with it in the next world to receive reward. But when you get there, everything is already gone. Therefore, even a person who recognizes difficulties in marriage, social difficulties, temptations they cannot overcome, must say to themselves, as long as I am alive, I can still fix it. They must believe in themselves, as the Holy One, blessed be He, says, and you will master it. It, the instinct, seems frightening, it is intense, but I created you stronger than it. It comes with much illusion, much exaggeration, but if you decide, step by step, in the end, you will reach the destination you desire. We conclude with a blessing. May these words of Torah be dedicated to the success of the people of Israel and the soldiers of Israel. And may all the audience who are here with us and also those who are watching from other places, may the Eternal grant that all the desires of their hearts for good and blessing be fulfilled. Amen. M.